Hi, this is Diane Moore from the Chattanooga Public Library. Today I'm up at my mom's place because she has much better examples of some of the things I wanted to show you about pruning. And this is my friend Sarah over here trying to help me by snagging my pants. Alright, these are some young fruit trees that my mom has just purchased. This is very tall and thin. This is sort of a new thing they're doing, columnar trees. They're taller rather than they are fuller. Up at the very top, this is a primary bud. Can't see it very well, the wind is blowing, but it's up at the tip top. You don't really want to top off trees, but if you're trying to prune something to make it bushier, that's what you want to cut off. And you want to cut it right above either a bud. If you can see that teeny tiny bud there, right between the trunk and the leaf, right above that is where you want to snip it off. That way the strength goes into the plant, it makes it all nice and bushy, and you don't have a dead stick and an unhappy plant. Now I'm going to try to walk over here without making you throw up. And we're going to go over to some big old apple trees. These trees are wonderful examples of how not to prune a tree. My dad was hoping that by trimming them down, he could make them into dwarf trees. You have to start that when the tree is a little whippling, a couple of years old, maybe at the most. Best if you just buy a plant that's on dwarf rootstock. And you look up into this apple tree. Isn't that nice? See all those branches? It's shady and pleasant under here. That's the worst thing in the world that you could possibly do for a fruit tree. What you want is to open up the canopy. You want sunlight to come in to help ripen the fruit. You don't want 2,000 branches because you don't want a million teeny tiny little apples. You want enough apples, but you want big, fat, juicy apples. Too many apples, too much energy distributed. And you look up into the tree and you see the branches. These are smaller than a lot of the branches would be. When you don't prune a tree right or when you top it off, they're called waterspout branches. They're weaker. These are the ones that break when you have a big storm. When you look up into a tree and you see branches that cross over each other, one of those needs to go. That's not good. If you see ones that are sticking in a weird direction or they're twisting back onto the tree, those need to go. Right here, wonderful example of watersprout branches. Those suck the strength from the tree. What you want are a few main important branches that help the fruit to grow productively, instead of a bunch of wasted energy so spread out, the poor tree has no idea what to do. If you're not sure what to do, you can get help from a master gardener. Most of the places that you go to buy things like this, they will either pre-prune your tree. See, that's a bad thing right there. That should be snipped right off. They will actually pre-prune your trees, or they'll give you videos or instructions to do it. If you're not sure, ask around, call the library, we'll find someone who will help you. When you do snip the branches off, it's really important that you use the proper tool. With something like this, just a pair of pruners will work. If you have some bigger branches, then you need to remember that rule, especially with fruit trees and things like that. Make sure you never cut off more than a third of the bush. And then we're going to walk right over here and I'm going to show you a bigger branch that's been pruned off properly and why you want to try to always cut 1/4 inch from the trunk. That's if it's a tiny little branch that you could just snip off with a pair of scissors, or if that's a big huge branch. The reason that we do that is because if it's longer, and here's an example here. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. It's got a swing hanging on it. If it's any longer, then the tree doesn't know what to do It's harder for the tree to heal, and it can also cause some rot, or again, if it's long enough, then what you get are those sprout branches growing out because the tree's like, oh no, something's wrong, I need to send out some more branches. Properly pruned, this is what happens. The tree understands that that was a bad part, and it makes its own kind of a band-aid. You don't need to put wax or tar or anything on a tree. It will heal itself. In fact, if you paint it or do other things to it, that could actually cause it some damage. So it's a little bit tricky, but if you just kind of remember those principles, never trim more than 1/3 of a bush or a tree, of course, unless it's a rose or a holly. Make sure that when you trim the tree, now this is a nut tree, not an apple tree, but this is a good example of a tree with a good open canopy. You can see the sun up through all the branches. The branches are going to put their strength into making nuts or apples or cherries or whatever it is that you've produced, instead of trying to maintain a boatload of branches. So even though that's a nut tree, that demonstrates really well that same principle. Open canopy, not 2,000 little hard apples. If you want little apples, get a crabtree plant. And then of course, with the trimming, make sure that it's about 1/4 inch from the trunk. Use the proper tool, and then don't use any kind of a sealer, wax, paint. Believe me, the tree has the right sort of resources to fix its own self much better than we do. And that is how we will start to work on pruning our trees and our fruits and make sure they're productive, healthy, and beautiful. Thank you and have a great day. Be safe.